Welcome to the second panel of the sixth Public Sector Transformation Conference. So we heard a lot of capital injection in the European economy. We heard in the first panel about what are the data and architecture models that we should consider for a European, let's say, success in extracting value from data. In this second panel, we're actually gonna take a broader look at the national cloud policies, and we want to investigate what is the reaction of European cloud service providers to the policies that are being put out there. And it is my pleasure to welcome for this second panel, Piers O'Donoghue, that I'm sure everyone knows, Director of Future Networks in DG Connect in the European Commission. Thank you, Piers, for being with us. We then have Nicola Leroy-Fleuriot, the CEO of Keops Technology. Welcome, Nicola.
Thank you.
And then we have Alain Melon, the Managing Director of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise France. Welcome, Alain.
Thank you, Anna.
So as for the previous panel, the idea is really to have a conversation among yourselves and with the audience. And so for you as well, I have quite a few questions and themes I would like to discuss. So maybe since really the title of the panel are the national cloud policies, and are we really going towards, digital sovereignty from a public sector perspective? I would maybe start, Alain, with you, because obviously France has published a cloud management policy last May for sensitive public sector data, the cloud de confiance. And so I was curious to hear your thoughts on how do you see this strategy unfolding in the market? So what is the reaction and what is basically the shape up of the market that this policy has generated?
Yeah, thanks, Irina, and good morning to everyone. So first of all, I am in this business in France since now more than 20 years, and we have seen a lot of evolution or new policies pushed by the French government with initiatives on centralized cloud in the last decade, and now this cloud de confiance or trusted cloud requirement. Before commenting on this, on the content of this policy, I think we should be happy, and I am really happy that the French government is pushing clear rules to the market for everybody. And that's something that is very important for us, because the cloud strategy is clearly setting a clear path or a clear journey for the public sector in order to use the cloud technology. And I think that's not the case in every country in the world. That's not the case in every country in Europe. So that's first a good news regarding the fact that the rules of the games are clear. And then regarding the content of this strategy, I think this strategy that is supporting the European data sovereignty and digital sovereignty targets, because all the policy is there to help having local players, local service provider building their offerings, their new service offering, to allow the public sector and the private sector, by the way, to use the cloud technology to modernize their operation. And that's clearly something that makes sense. That is helping, bringing the cloud everywhere. And so that's something really resonating for us as HPE with the hybrid cloud strategy we are having, because the more we'll have companies or service providers that are creating offerings that are compliant with this cloud de confiance strategy, it will help the market to move in this kind of new technology. And local players are now pushed to create these new offerings. There have been a couple of announcements in the French market since the government policy published in May. So now we have a couple of new service providers going into that route And I think that's good for the digital transformation of the administration and the private sector.
Great, thank you, Alain. And in fact, importance of supporting European cloud service providers. In the previous panel, we had the CEO of IP Telecom that was really, preoccupied of the destiny of the European cloud service providers that may become system integrators of the big guys unless we seize the opportunity to shape a market where the European cloud service providers can scale. So, Nicola, I would come to you, and maybe I would first ask you if you could introduce Cheops Technologies. So, what do you do? What's your business? Where do you operate? And then maybe comment on Alain's reaction and on the French government cloud policy.
Okay, Rina, thank you. So I'm Nicola Rofario, President and CEO of Cheops Technology. We are a French cloud service provider with 600 employees based in France. The headquarters is in a very well-known city in France. We are not in Paris. We are based in Bordeaux. You know, probably we have the best wine in the world. I'm sure that everybody is okay with me, even if there is other country doing great wine too. And sorry for people from Napa Valley, but it's true. But anyway, the headquarters in Bordeaux. We have 13 agencies in France, including 2 in Paris, and we have a sub in Geneva, in Switzerland, covering the Swiss market. In fact, I said we are cloud service provider, but we have 2 main businesses. We are cloud service provider. We come back on that, and we are specialized on designing, selling, and implementing infrastructure for companies who don't want to go to the cloud. So, for example, some big companies still have an internal IT, and so we provide them the design, the equipment, and we install the equipment, the infrastructure. So that means servers, storage, networking, security solution, and so on. Coming back on the cloud service provider, the business of cloud service provider of Cheops, it is now the main business, and we run the IT of about more than 250 companies. Most of them are the top of the mid-sized companies. It's our specialty, running ERPs like SAP, GD Edwards, Microsoft Dynamics, Sage X3, and so on. And the particularity of Cheops, and that makes us different than the US cloud service provider. Like I would like to make advertising for these companies, but I call them Amazure. You know, I make a merge already between Amazon and Azure. So if we compare Cheops against Amazure, we deliver different services. Of course, we deliver in our 5 data centers in France and 2 in Switzerland. We deliver the power, the storage, and the security of the IT. But our services that don't consist in just maintaining the servers on. We go to maintain the apps on. What is important for our customers, our target, is not that the server is okay. It is that the apps is powerful, performing, and running very well. So our specialty is on that. Coming back on what you asked to Alain, I think that things are changing at this time. In the public sector, they had difficulties to go to the cloud until now because they have a lot of IT people running the IT internally, and so the public government, for the public sector in France, takes a long time to go to the cloud. Unfortunately, when they began to go to the cloud, some of them has gone to the American cloud, American public cloud. Okay, you know them, Amazure, and I can add Google Cloud Platform. I think that is crazy. That is a big mistake. You know, the problem of the confidentiality of the data. The data are now the black oil. I don't know if you say that in English. The black oil of the 20th centuries. Of the 20th century. So it's a big mistake to do that. And it seems that since 1 year, it's not long, not a long time, since 1 year, now the public government and the manager of the IT begin to understand that they must run the IT in the cloud with French or European cloud service provider. Okay, there is a new mind about that, but it's really new. Okay, and for that, l'ANSSI, it's a national security of information system in France, has done a new agreement called Cloud de Confiance, Confident Cloud, if I have to translate that. The how to say the label is exactly cloud SecNum Cloud. Okay, so we were at Cheops, we were already certified ISO 27001. We were already certified ISO 20000, and we are currently going to not competing. We are working to obtain the SecNum Cloud label. But I would like to say that it is complicated. This label is really complicated, and I think I have to discuss with Lancy. It's not really for me and for my people inside Cheops in charge of the certification, the label. They think that it's not completely adapted. What do customers in the public government, in the public organization need? They need the total confidentiality. They need that the cloud is running with European people in European countries, and with the right processes, and not how to say, I don't know the word in English, a carcan, something really straight, and you put the company for the certification in a tunnel. That is a big mistake, and we must work with ANSSI to maybe make this label, this certification second cloud, I think more intelligent for the public government.
Great. So we heard, Piers, on the national French cloud strategy. We heard clear rules. We heard from Nicola how this can, help the European cloud service providers to operate and scale, and with some challenges being outlined. Obviously, member states adopt their cloud policies, but you have been for a very long time an incredible advocate of cloud take-up in Europe, and obviously with a special eye to the SMEs. So I just was thinking if you have any commentary on the SMEs angle in Europe, and how are they doing, or will they need any additional policy support?
Yes, thank you. It's crucial to the policies that we've been following. And by the way, when we talk about SMEs, we have to be realistic that some of the very interesting European providers are SMEs compared to some of the hyperscalers on a global level. But that's crucial. So first of all, we are pushing a cloud-first policy, and that includes for public services and public sector. We'll come back to those as users in a moment. But for the providers, particularly for European companies, well, the first thing is that we need an open and competitive cloud market. That's the best way of helping the services to flourish, and also providing choice to users. So there is an industrial policy angle to that. But first of all, we just simply have to make sure that cloud users and potential users who may still have hesitations, that they're not locked into an ecosystem of a particular provider, that they don't find that once they've signed one contract which looks attractive, that they don't have the possibility of backing out of that or transferring their data or their processes at a later stage, either to another provider, or more likely in the current context, to a multi-vendor system where they will have interoperable, trustworthy and competitive cloud services. And that's something which we are helping to provide, we hope. We're working with the member states, but also with European industry. But we are looking at regulatory measures to facilitate cloud switching in the context of the Data Act, already on top of what we have tabled in the Digital Market Act, in order to prevent this lock-in. And that is critical, we think, for European-based providers. In many cases, infrastructure as a service is almost a commodity now, But what is very important is that European providers provide more localized, hands-on services with value-added adaptations to the user needs, local needs, and obviously offering platform and software services, which are very, very valuable and which will help them to compete with the sort of the bare wire or infrastructure providers from elsewhere. So local service providers, they'll benefit from a more transparent market, increased visibility. And we plan also to set up an online cloud marketplace, which will target, in particular in the first instance, SMEs and public sector users. So they can see the services that are on offer from European operators to meet their specific needs. And that's very important. And in the same way that Nicola described his business lines, one of which are customers who are reluctant to move from on-premises, a hands-on local European provider is much more likely to create the confidence and build the customer relationship to allow them, and public sector users included, to switch to cloud, which we think is so important for productivity, for improved public services or commercial services, as Alain said also. And that's the benefit of cloud for Europe. And if I just turn to that then finally, the public sector users do have a very significant responsibility with regard to the security of the data for which they are responsible. And they have to make sure that the services are secure, but also that they're, again, not locking the data, or for that matter, the public expenditure into a contract, which means that they can't be flexible, that they can't have access to all of the hybrid technologies that are developing. And a last point, which we will have to come back to, as to what is the value added of the European way of doing things. But it also adds cost. And one of them is data protection. We have no apology at all with regard to our very strong general data protection regulation and the way that ensures that data is protected. But also now increasingly we have to add to that energy efficiency, ensuring that the cloud services, the data centers, and the connectivity are all in line with our overall priority of lowering the carbon footprint and actually then having carbon neutral cloud services. That will have to reflect in green public procurement policy. And again, this is a big opportunity for European public authorities to meet their obligations, but also, of course, an opportunity for European cloud providers to differentiate from the big hyperscalers. And here I must say that we will be introducing regulation to ensure that there is no lowest common denominator. Everyone who wants to play in this market will have to meet these high level of requirements. They already do for data protection. It will be the same for carbon neutrality, and that is something which will support industry, even though of course it is a big ask for them to actually improve the quality of their compute facilities. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Piers. And there is a lot there, and especially your first point on no vendor lock-in. I think this was something that in the previous panel, Francesco Bonfiglio from Gaia X did really stress a lot and even characterize it as Europe potentially could become hostage of proprietary technologies unless we create interoperable alternatives. But I thought, Alain, you wanted to jump in on this.
Yeah, just because I think that's a key point. As a managing director for HP in France, I'm meeting a lot of customers or public sector IT people, and being locked in a solution is something that is no longer the way they want to be treated and to consume their IT, by the way. Because you can make a choice at a given time, given the portfolio of services a given vendor is providing, but you don't know if for your data and for your future business, it will be the ones that will provide the best service in the future. So you need to be able to get your data back and to push them to another vendor if needed, and to have this flexibility and interoperability. And that's not a given in the current context. So having some regulation, as Piers mentioned, coming from Europe saying, okay, here are the basic rules every service provider need to follow in order to operate with data in Europe. And given the the data criticality, there might be in different levels. But at the end of the day, I think it will be a key benefit for the public administration or for also the private sector.
Thank you, Alain. And maybe building and coming to Nicola, but building on another point that Pierce, you also was mentioning that I think it is critical. So you talked about trust and proximity. So how let's call it local cloud service provider can understand probably better the requests of the customer and build a trust that is fundamental then for this modernization journey together. So I thought, Nicola, that I would come to you and maybe you could tell us more about your experience with your customers being basically a cloud de proximité, if we may say so.
Yes, what customers like with us, it's the ability for Keops to personalize the delivery, to personalize the IT production, to personalize the environment. For example, we still have people, and it is the case regularly the case in the public administration. Running old version of Windows servers, and so they need to be able to move on that without changing the software, without updating the software, etc., etc. So we are able to personalize the environment, to personalize the how to say the prestation, Alain?
The capacity.
The what? The
deliverables, not only the SLA, the deliverables are clearly customized by local service providers.
I said before the delivery. So we are able to personalize the delivery, and moreover, and it is really important, I'm sure that Pierce will agree with me, we are able to personalize the contract. So I mean, in the contract with a local service provider like us, there is inside the contract, in standard contract, there is a clause of reversibility. This is inside the contract. You don't have that with Amazon. You don't have that with the other public cloud service provider. You have penalties if we do not deliver the reliability, the availability of the IT going to the apps. Remember, not only the servers, because in fact, customers do not care about the VM is okay. They don't care about the VM, the virtual machine. They care about the apps. Does the apps is all okay, or does the apps is not okay? That makes a big difference for us, and we are winning a lot of business against the public cloud service provider because we are really able to deliver that. But in the contract, there is penalties if we do not respect the SLA, the service level agreement. We have to pay penalties. With the other cloud service providers, you have only your eyes to cry when it's done for one day. Sometimes that happens. Huh? You have to know that the cloud is not magical. Sometimes there is a big breakdown. Sometimes you don't have any mail working. That is a pity, but and you don't have any penalties. You don't have any indemnity. And when there is one, it's not significant. With us, it can be really, really significant, and we are engaged in a high level service level agreement. Okay. What can I add? The reversibility I told you before is really important. Now, I think that the baseline of Keops could be the right apps in the right cloud at the right price. That is our business today. We are not here to say to the customer, oh, you should put all your IT inside the data centers of Keops on our infrastructure. Sometimes we are going to say, this is really confidential and critical. You're afraid that your data go away. Okay, you can keep it inside. You can keep it internal. And if you want, we can operate during the night, during the weekend. If you don't have the people for that, we can operate your apps, your system inside your company. Okay. The second solution is to say, this is really critical. You don't have the people, the knowledge for that, to maintain that inside the company, internal. You can, and we try to sell that. You can go on iCode. iCode is a cloud offers, meaning infrastructure, chaos on demand. Okay, and we are going to personalize the environment, to personalize the service. And third solution, if your apps is really moving a lot with sometimes big power is necessary, sometimes low power is necessary, this is not really confidential data, not really critical, we can put that on the public cloud, but we will be chaos, will be your alone provider, giving you reporting, giving you making the bills, giving you information about the state of your IT, wherever it is, inside, in our private cloud with chaos, in the public cloud.
Great, thank you, Nicola. And indeed, this point on reversibility, clearly very important to go back to Pierce's point on no vendor lock-in. And Pierce, you mentioned obviously that you are planning to publish, let's say, some additional regulation in this field. But I also wanted to come to the conversation of the Gaia-X and of the European Alliance for Industrial Data. You obviously launched this initiative that will interact with Gaia-X, but this would be already my first question for you. And really, I think it would be quite interesting to hear what are the objectives of this alliance. You did mention before that you're also considering looking at procurement rules to maybe introduce some guidance there towards the green transition and additional elements. So I would just welcome if you could walk us through the objectives of the alliance and tell us a bit more about it.
Yes, certainly. It's fully in the same direction as what we've been talking about, which is actually helping to boost EU-based cloud providers, but with a view to the future. And it does really come on from what Nicola was saying, in the sense that the future is on the edge. There will always be a huge need for centralized data centers and infrastructure, but increasingly the critical processing will be done with a larger amount of data on the edge. And the alliance is really to strengthen Europe's industrial position on cloud and edge to meet the needs of European business and the public sector. With regard to all of the data processing they do, but particularly the highly sensitive data, and particularly the data requiring real-time processing close to the edge, close to the user. And that again relates exactly to what we've just been hearing about the reality of Nicola's customers, which is that they're more concerned with the apps and not necessarily with containers or any of the behind-the-scenes central processing. In the same way, therefore, the Alliance seeks to bring together industry in order to work on this cloud and edge, next generation cloud and edge, to link directly to the investments that we are focusing under our Digital Europe program on the development of edge technology, on cloud federation, particularly federation of government and public sector infrastructure and cloud resource. To allow for more efficient processing of data, greater access and use and reuse of data, and of course, and I'm sure that they were a subject in the first session, but also to directly support our vision for European data spaces. But anyway, the Alliance will therefore bring forward companies who meet the membership criteria, which have been published, which we have the application period is open. And we are looking for companies to sign up who are genuinely willing and ready to commit to cooperating on work to have a European industrial vision on this important area. There'll also be a stakeholder platform to ensure that we have synergies in investments. We do matchmaking between different investment tools and projects, and also to help a real strategic view as to where this has to go. Because we don't pretend for a moment that the Commission, or even the Commission working with member states, can do this. We really need both the industry, particularly also then the users, the European users, in order to have a proper design of this vision and actual concrete implementation in the area of edge and cloud. We'll then have work in specific areas, so there will be a sectoral dimension, some of which will be sensitive and where participation will be limited. If you take, for example, the aerospace and defense sector, clearly there in the link with the data spaces, there will be a real need for a high security profile and trust. So it will have to be European-based companies who cannot have their data taken from them because of third country laws. And then, of course, a platform for cooperating with governments and public authorities. As again, so to make this so central to our discussion now, the deployment of cloud services, particularly forward-looking edge services for the public interest, is vital. Just take transport, just take mobility and public transport, or the use of energy. Those are critical areas. So there you go. That's what the alliance is. You mentioned Gaia X. I know that Francesco presented Gaia X, and really that's the description of what they do. But for us, Gaia X will be critical in again helping from a user and a supplier point of view, identifying together the appropriate standards to be used, to be referenced for the actual design and rollout, and in some cases the investment in this in these forward-looking cloud and edge infrastructures, and of course then very much supporting the data spaces, which are so critical for our digital strategy in general. There you are.
And I think Irena and Piers mentioned the edge topic and the data movement we are seeing on the market, moving to the centralized stuff to more remote. The pandemic and the last 2 years have been a great example that the remote stuff is now the way people are willing to interact for everything, and so the volume of data that will be processed remotely is increasing in the industry with what Piers mentioned, but for also the European citizen, we are doing more and more stuff remotely, and so having the cloud experience everywhere is now not an option. It's a must, because people
and
that
the importance for government services, for day-to-day online public services for the citizen. There are a lot of people, and I probably would include myself in this, who 2 years ago would not have imagined that I would be doing so much of my transactions with public authorities online. And it's very healthy because we practice what we preach, in the sense that now we have to be sure that that online system, that all of the cloud and data infrastructure that underlines it, is robust, is of course secure with regard to all of the sensitive and personal data that is dealt with there, but also that it actually works. And it works for the citizen in their locality, in their language, with an interface that sort of responds to their cultural as well as their intellectual needs.
Absolutely, and maybe the one thing that I wanted maybe to ask Alain also as a follow-up, because Piers, you obviously talked about edge, but you also talked a lot about energy efficient data processing. And so I'm curious, maybe Alain, if you would see this momentum as we dedicated this morning to talking about the European Renaissance with the capitals of the European Resilience and Recovery Fund. So is this a moment that we can seize for the sustainable transformation as well? And if so, what are your thoughts on how this could be achieved?
So as Piers mentioned, I think there are two angles to look at that question. The first angle is, as Piers mentioned, there is a huge effort to modernize the public sector user experience, by the way, and this is creating a huge IT investment need, and you can do it, let's say, as we used to do in the past, by provisioning a lot of servers, a lot of storage, a lot of application in big data centers. But I think this is not the right way to do it now to be sustainable. The best way to do it now is much more to adopt the cloud model, and this is why the French government put the cloud at the center, our cloud first strategy on the table, because they say, okay, you need to consume and pay only for what you are using, and grow as the data is growing. So that's clearly what we are pushing, and that's where the IT vendors need to adapt to be sure that we are proposing this same kind of procurement models and service model, by the way, because this is not only procurement, this is services. That's the first angle. So, being sure that you are only paying what you are consuming. The second angle is about, what are you doing in the life cycle of the assets? And I think that's a key point also, because, as the volume of data is growing year after year, we see that, and it will not decrease in the coming years. It will continue to increase even exponentially in some areas. We need to be sure that the way we are managing the asset in terms of sustainability is better than what we used to do. Not only to avoid having IT being a large contributor to the climate change, but also, for the material and the stuff we are using. So from an IT vendor standpoint and from HV standpoint, what we are pushing is clearly to be sure that we are not only designing the asset to be eco-friendly, but also using the asset where most of the impact is lying in a better way, but with this usage model, and also recycling or reconditioning the asset at the end of the life cycle. And by adopting these cloud models, with the asset being managed by the vendors, the service providers, I think we have a good opportunity to make it in a more sustainable way, because the vendors will be accountable for the full life cycle of the asset, and not putting the stuff on the shoulders of the customer or the public institution. So that's something that is also changing the mindset on the way we are looking at IT.
Great. So this is really a circular economy then approach, when you
Indeed.
basically at the end of the usage of basically the infrastructure that allows compute to occur, you basically refurbish and re-put again.
And just to finish on this, I think we have made huge investment in capacity in Ireland. We have a huge factory where we are handling more than 3 million assets a year, just doing that, taking them back in a usable format to reuse them. More than 88% of them are reused after entering the factory, which is something I think we need to push even further.
Great. So I would like to come back now to you, Nicola, because obviously, we spoke a lot about European cloud service providers, and we heard from peers that there will be legislation supporting European SMEs and cloud providers. So I'm curious to learn from your experience in France and in Switzerland, where you operate. Do you find the skills in the market that you need to build this customized offer that you were mentioning before for your customers?
It depends of your money, and I always thought, I hope that peers will agree with me, that the role of the government, of the public organization, is not to give money for allowing private companies to invest. I think I always thought that the investment in terms of infrastructure for the cloud, if it's a private company, it must be private capital. But what can wait, and I'm very close to Alain Rousset, the president of the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and I know him since 30 years, and we are very close, and regularly he's sensitive about the cloud. He's not an expert, but being the president of the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine, and KEOPS being one of the major companies of the region, he's sensitive. But what can I say? What we wait in terms of skills from public organization is to help us to hire people, to train people. We need more people trained, more people training in IT, more people going to school specialized on IT. And I told him that we need some help to hire, because today, it's a big crisis in terms of competencies, to find the competencies on the market. In France, we said the Numéum, it's Syntec Numérique, it's the organization for the IT companies, we say organization patronal, so patronal organization. I don't know if you can say that. It's a boss organization for IT companies. We say that it is missing 20,000 people specialized on IT in France. 20,000. Okay. And I think now it's 20,000 one in 2019. Last numbers is 30,000. We miss 30,000 people specialized in IT in France. So at this time, it is a war. It is a war in France to hire people. It is a war in Switzerland too. Same thing. The salary are increasing at a level, an incredible level. We have sometimes some people saying to us, some employees saying to us, oh, you know what? I like the company, I like the slides, I like the nap room, I like the game room, I like the bio restaurant, I like to be inside kiosks. But my salary is annually 50,000 euros for level 2 people, not a big expert. Level 2 people on VMware, on Windows, and so on. I found an offer with 70,000 euros. So at this time, it's not an inflation, it's a big inflation on the salary. So we must have more people on the market. We must have more people trained, and we must have sometimes some help. So the French government last year, in France, we have a system called alternance. I don't know if you know that in Europe.
Apprenticeship, yeah.
Yes, alternance, and in English, I don't know how we can translate.
Yeah,
So
apprenticeship,
people going 2 days in the school and 3 days inside the company, or 1 week in school and 1 week at the company. And so we have an help to finance the studies of 8,000 euros per people. That is good solution, but it's not enough. I think the government must push people to have more interest for such studies, for IT studies. For example, Irena, I'm very happy to meet you today because I know a lot of people inside HP Enterprise, but I didn't know you. I'm very happy to see a woman at the top of the management of HP Enterprise. But about IT people, we have only men. There is one woman for 50 men, maybe, or if it's not 50, it's 30. Okay, so it's not enough. We must encourage women and young pupils to go to these studies. Okay, that is for me the main object, and I think that maybe another skill could be to work on a European how do you say sovereign cloud? You say sovereign? A European sovereign label cloud, but more simple, I would say more aligned with what government and customers wait, not something too much theoretical and not really adapted. And I think that what we have done in France is too complicated, not really adapted about what customers wait. Okay, the subject is not to make something too closed, too locked. Okay, it's to do a label, a certification, responding to the weight of the customer in terms of course, reliability, confidentiality, European nationality. Okay, I think that it's crazy. I will not say the name of the companies, but I know that one company has obtained the Second Cloud label in France with the ANSI, and during the night, it's Indian people operating the systems. That is just crazy. That is just crazy. Of course, in terms of cost, it's probably interesting, but that is not a sovereign cloud. When it is operated by foreigner people, it should be forbidden, definitively forbidden. And I became crazy when I learned that. That is crazy.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you for your thoughts. And I guess so. What we hear is that there is out there a real war on talent and a real shortage. So you gave us some very interesting numbers: 30,000 IT specialists shortage in France. So, Piers, I was wondering whether you had any comments on the skills topic in particular.
I do. I would actually like to comment on several of the things that Nicola said, but on this, because it is so important, and he is quite right to emphasize this. The Commission is acutely aware of the problem. And in fact, so far as that we are, certainly in the part of the Commission that I work in, we're focused on technology solutions and ICT and research, etc. Nevertheless, as part of our digital strategy, as a cardinal part of what we have identified as the digital compass, our digital strategy for the next 10 years, one of the 4 core elements is digital skills and training, because we can't have any of the others, infrastructure, services, security, etc., increase productivity, if we don't, as Nicola is obviously suffering, if we don't have the skills here to actually do all of the work. It's also, of course, the fact that it is evident that if we want to have future-proof employment, if we want Europe to be an attractive and modern labour market, we obviously have to have training systems at every level, focusing much more on digital skills. And that is exactly what we do in the Digital Compass. Under the Digital Europe programme, again, we have direct spending to support the work being done by member states for training in digital skills, not just basic digital literacy for the population and your average workforce, but actually then backing that up with specific support for the training of experts through to a highly qualified level. So we are very alive to this issue. It's a challenge which could undermine all of our digital ambitions unless we tackle it. So thank you, Nicola, for raising it. I just want to comment on 2 things. One, just a quick line, it's a cheap throwaway, but you said you hope that I agree with regard to not giving money to individual companies. Yes, of course, that's state aids. But of course, when Europe and European companies are faced with massive hyperscalers who have cash flows larger than some member states' budgets, we have to be realistic about the environment in which smaller European companies are operating. So a lot of our measures will be involved targeting companies who can benefit in an ecosystem, but also some of the things that we want to do, for example, in the Federation of Cloud, obviously somebody's going to have to operate the middleware platform, etc. And so through procurement or otherwise, there will be, we hope, European companies involved there. But more importantly, where we do want to and we can support companies working together, we have another major project, which is our what's called an Important Project of Common European Interest, an IPCEI, on the next generation cloud and edge. And that is a state aids measure. That will be carefully supervised by our colleagues in DG Competition. But it is by nature identifying gaps in the market failures, where there isn't a competitor who would be, shall we say, unfairly treated if somebody else or a group of companies were to get the money. So we're very conscious of that, but we do nevertheless have targeted expenditure. Last point, I'm sorry for going on, but it's so important what Nicola said about the sovereign cloud. I think we have to be careful about building a fortress Europe. Nobody wants to do that. But when we deal particularly with sensitive personal, but also sensitive industrial or government data, we need to be less naive perhaps than we have been in the past with regard to how that data is treated and stored. I would just remind us that, for example, despite having all of the big name, and you have a cute paraphrase for it, Nicola, but the large hyperscalers coming from the United States. In the United States, they have public procurement regulation called FedRAMP, which excludes any company that is not US based from even bidding, and they can't even allow on certain sensitive government premises, no company can have a member of staff that is not a US citizen. So this relates to what you were saying about citizenship, etc. So in that environment, Europe also has to realize that we have to be clever about what we do. We don't have the same resources, but what we do have as an ambition is to create safe, secure, but highly flexible hybrid data processing and data spaces, which, while benefiting the European economy, are secure from others, that they are not subject to attack or pirating or whatever. And that is really where we need to strengthen cloud. And I will finish on this. We are working on European cloud security certification, which started from European industry and non-European industry together, advising us on what should be the format for such a certification process. That is now with our security agency and the member states. And that will be a way of ensuring, without closing the doors, that anybody who does offer cloud services, particularly advanced cloud services in Europe, fully meets the security certification, the security standards that we set for ourselves in Europe. Sorry for going on for so long, but
no, that's great, Piers. And actually, I do have a follow-up question on the IPSI instrument, so the International Project of Common European Interest. Obviously, Europe launched this kind of instruments for really big industrial, let's say, visions and projects. And I was just curious, since we have a lot of private sector attending here with us today, could you tell us more? How do you see this process going? Because if I understand correctly, we were now at the member states level, the projects were, let's say, collected and defined and the players collected. And now we're at the matchmaking time at European level to see if there is interest for a specific project across multiple European territories. So just curious to hear more. How is it going? Are you happy with the response that you saw from the market?
The answer is yes. We have not yet gone into a detailed analysis, therefore appreciation project by project. And part of the reason is actually because there's a significant number of projects that have been proposed. We're very enthusiastic and very satisfied with the process so far. And as well as the companies, and I will come back to them, it's also starting from the fact that 12 EU member states came together and proposed this IPCEI, and they now have, through their national calls, they have projects being run by over 200 companies, and that is, in fact, there are more than that. That is a sign of the interest in the response. Now, it is designed to help and maybe even to restore technology leadership in a field where, as I've said, there is a market failure, where in many cases the retail offer that companies are getting doesn't meet their demands, particularly with regard to security and sustainable processing. And it certainly doesn't allow those companies that need to push the barriers to move out to the edge as quickly as we would hope. So we see in the proposals that have come in that there are a number of very interesting projects. And as you said, we're now in what we're calling the matchmaking process, where we want groups or clusters of these projects to coalesce together to form a small number of EU flagship projects, which will allow us to really work on, with the industry, this distributed, multi-provider, multi-sector cloud edge continuum that we have written about. But now, of course, we have to see it done. And once again, in my team, we're very modest about our abilities to design that on our own. We can't. And that is why the combination of member state expertise and funding, together with European funding, but most particularly with industry involvement, directly involved in designing this and taking user input as to what actually could be usable, what is missing, and what is it that needs to be rolled out to give us these advanced data processing capabilities. So we will, in the coming months with the member states, see a series of announcements. And then, of course, we want to work towards the design and the first actual deployment of this infrastructure. So in the months to come, we'll be talking a lot more about it.
Fantastic. Thank you. But it's already great to hear that you had already such a great response from the market with 200 participating companies. We have a few minutes to go, less than 10 minutes, and I would have maybe two final questions. I would come maybe now first to you and really ask you about your perspective on what could be the successful factors for a public sector transformation in France, especially now that we have obviously the Recovery and Resilience funding coming down the line. So any thoughts you could share based on your long-standing experience in the sector? You're on mute.
Sorry, I mentioned it, or part of it already, regarding the fact that, all the services from the public sector have been delivered online during the last 2 years or last year and a half. And, this transformation has been done in an emergency mode for many services or many activities. And now they need to be successful in the long run. They need to make it more sustainable, not only in terms of quality of services, but scope of services, to be sure that we are doing many things this way, because European citizens and French citizens are willing to interact with the administration that way now, even more the young ones, and so we cannot afford having processes that are still very manual or still very paperwork. So that's the first point, and to do so, I think the right angle is also to look at it by importing the technology and the ability to handle data coming from the cloud stuff that has been developed during the last few years in every processes. I think we are in a situation where all the funding available by the government at European level, but also at French level, to help them modernize, will provide then two options, and they will follow, I think, the two of them. First one is to modernize the infrastructure to be open, secure, flexible, being able to host every application, and as Nicola mentioned, with the right location of data for the right application at the right time. And so that's the first stuff. And the second one is all the services around it, to be sure that what they are doing will be done also in a way where they will keep in control of all the data. In France, there have been a lot of discussion around the health data stuff in the last few years or few quarters. Sorry, I think this is the kind of stuff where they need to be also advised and discussed with people that are experienced on this kind of transformation regarding what needs to be done. So we have developed a kind of framework of advisory based on all the transformation we have seen in the market since the last 10 years, saying here are the right steps to consider in terms of design, in terms of choice, in terms of preparation. And I think Pierre mentioned it. That's a choice, and all what is done by the French government to have new service provider is to provide more choice, which is very good. I mean, by having choice, they will be able to make the right choice for the right application, and that's something we are supporting, because I think if we want to avoid this vendor lock-in stuff we discussed, if we want to ensure security, having choice is the best way to ensure that they will modernize in the sustainable manner. And so that's the key challenge they have in front of them after the pandemic emergency, let's say it that way.
Great, thank you, Alain. Nicola, did you want to come in?
Yes. First of all, I don't know if Pierce saw my message, my chat on the chat, but I will be in the European Commission the 21st of January and the 1st of February, and I would like to meet him to discuss furthermore together. I will be at the European Commission with Alain Rousset, the president of the region Nouvelle-Aquitaine, to meet Thierry Breton, discussing about that subject too. Coming back to what the public government, public organization can wait from a cloud service provider like us. The 15th of September, a person called from the French government, a person called Nadi Bouhana, is the director interministériel du numérique. I don't know him, but he sent a letter to the public organization saying, if you want to move to the cloud for the mail, you have to choose a mail solution certified Second Cloud. And so they are talking about something called in France Blue. So we can think about the cloud and the sky blue, and it's probably a parallel with Azure. Azure is blue too, and it's an alliance between Orange and Capgemini using the Azure technology to provide Office 365 solutions for public government and certified segment code. So this certification is just I would say a brick of the work to do. We are working today inside KEOPS. We are working today on an open source mail solution called BlueMind, and I would like to build a solution certified stack segment cloud, so the ANSI certification. And I would like to launch this solution for 2022, so it's closed, to propose an alternative to Azure, because okay, Azure with Blue is segment cloud certified, very good, but it remains really expensive. I don't know if Microsoft people is listening to me, but I don't care. I'm able to say that probably it's a very good solution. Okay, no problem, but it remains an American tool, and it remains a private tool, really expensive. So we want to work on with a French solution, open source, called BlueMind. The headquarters of this company is based in Toulouse. They hired a lot of funds recently, and I would like to launch a segment code solution for mail based on that solution in 2022 for France.
Great.
And we will operate that tool too in Switzerland. Of course, we will not operate from France for Switzerland customers. We will do the same thing in Switzerland, but based on the same tool. Okay, we are today inside KEOPS and DFI service ourselves in Switzerland. We are sharing a lot of technology, of course. Okay, so we are implementing our cloud offers. They had a cloud offer in the past in Switzerland called Diamond for small companies, and we have implemented our cloud solution inside Switzerland, but operated by Switzerland people, because in France we just begin to be sensitive about confidentiality and sovereign solutions. I think that in Switzerland it is already in the mindset since early, because probably of the banking system and the secret of the banking system. They are really they have a mindset in terms of confidentiality and sovereign more developed than us.
Great, and I think that's a great way to conclude our session. So we heard the challenges and opportunities that are out there for European cloud providers. We heard from Piers how the Commission is basically already acting in support of European cloud providers from a regulatory perspective, from a European Industrial Cloud and Data Alliance perspective, and also from a funding perspective with the IPSAI CIS project. So it sounds like Europe has pulled together all the ingredients to really build a successful cloud ecosystem. So with that, on that positive note, I would like to thank you all for your participation, for all your insights, and I wish you obviously a lot of success in your respective roles in the markets and in the European Commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you.
Very much.
So with that, we have reached an end to the 6th edition of the Public Sector Conference. So I do hope that you have found our morning together insightful. The idea was to be concrete, to be thought-provoking, hopefully, and also to really outline what could be the success ingredients for the public sector reform in Europe at the time of a European renaissance. As every year, the replay will be available. So in case you could not join us live, you'll absolutely have the opportunity to watch us. I would like to warmly thank you for your participation and see you in next year's edition. Thank you. Goodbye.